everyone, in today's video we are going to be talking about chapter 13, delivery. More specifically, we are going to be talking about the 4 methods of delivery. Then we're going to talk about nonverbal communication. And within nonverbal communication, we have various components such as paralanguage, hand gestures, facial expressions, and we're going to jump all into that during the second portion of this video. So first, let's talk about the 4 methods of delivery. And so first, we are going to talk about manuscript. Second, we're going to talk about memory. Third, impromptu. And then fourth, extemporaneous. So these are all 4 different methods of delivery. And so one method would be the manuscript. Now with manuscript, it is defined a speech that is written out word for word and read to the audience. And so this honestly requires great skill in that you don't want to sound robotic. And so some individuals, when they do read something, they'll be like, hello, my name is Cecilia. How are you all doing today? Versus, hey everyone, my name is Cecilia, right? And so you can see how it can make a very big difference. And think about professions who use manuscripts. So one particular profession that comes to mind would be individuals who do broadcasts or who do the news. And so those individuals, they'll have a script for themselves right behind the screen, and then they'll be reading it off. And so they'll put it so close to the screen that you probably won't see them reading it, like their eyes moving, and because that can be distracting as well. So watching the news, if you see someone's eyes moving like that, you're going to be looking back at their eye movements. And so they go through and they read it kind of in a way that is still professional, and there's still vocal variety as well, but it's not like, it's not, hello everyone, how are you all doing? Like, this is not what we aspire to have in this class, right? We don't want to use manuscripts. We will have outlines for our informative and persuasive speeches, but we don't want to just read everything word for word. We can reference our notes, which we're going to talk about later, but no. Manuscripts are usually used for instance, like interviewers or for broadcasters and so on and so forth. So there's one way to deliver information, and it would be through a manuscript. The second would be memory. And so defined memory is memorizing and reciting the speech, whether it be long or short. And so you have to go through and memorize thoroughly so you don't focus on the words too much, again, so it sounds fluid in a sense, so it sounds conversational. And so who uses this? Actors, for instance, right? An actor would be a great example of using memory, because they go through, they memorize all of their lines, and then they go through and they do their television shows, they do their movies, and it doesn't sound just monotone throughout the entire movie or monotone throughout the entire, right? They have everything up here. And sometimes do they go off of the script? Yes, but we're more specifically talking about the lines word for word that they memorize. A lot of students will ask me, Cecilia, do I need to memorize my outline? Do I need to memorize my speech? Absolutely not. I have a brief set of notes, like down here, I have my laptop. All right, and then I reference those. It's nice to have notes on hand. It's great to have your outline for your informative and persuasive speech. However, the best means is going to be brief notes. And so for your informative and persuasive speech, I do advise that you use note cards, because it gives you, like, you can go through your outline and do bullet points. Find key points that you need to address per main point, because you don't need to verbatim know everything that is off of your outline. I don't know everything, or like, I know everything from the textbook, let me just say that, but I don't go over everything from the textbook word for word, because it's just too much information. It is. And so I go through and I'm like, okay, this is important, this is what I would like for my students to know, this is important, this is important. And then I go through and I summarize it in my own words. And then I use my own examples as well. And sometimes I do reference the examples in the textbook. But again, you're not verbatim saying everything that is on your notes. You're not verbatim saying everything that is on your outline. You don't need to memorize your speech at all. Just have a brief set of notes available to you. And with that, we have extemporaneous delivery. And that's what we do use in this class. And that's what it is. You're using a brief set of notes. More specifically, defined as a carefully prepared and rehearsed speech that is presented from a brief set of notes. Again, for our presentations, it's important to practice, it's important to prepare. We can sense when people are not prepared. And for the first presentation, it's kind of like, okay, you're going up there, you're talking about yourself. Second one, it's far more organized. So we can kind of get a sense for like, did they actually practice for this presentation? Were there transition statements? Did they watch the videos? Like we can tell by watching other people's videos for the most part. And see, it kind of gets tricky with the second speech. The third and fourth speech, if you don't know the information at all, if you didn't do the research, it's very, very much so prevalent. And that's why preparation, organization is involved before you even give your presentations. And going through and giving your speech over and over and over and over again. I do that with my videos as well. I'm like, oh, Cecilia, that did not turn out well. Let's do a second video. Let's do a third video. Let's do a fourth video. And don't be too excessive because perfection does not exist. I can try my best to relay information to the best of my ability, and so can all of you. Just know nobody is perfect, all right? And I know that many of you want your presentations to come out wonderful and spectacular, but no matter what, there will always be room for improvement. Like for myself, there's always room for improvement, and that's a better way to look at it than, oh, I need to make this so perfect. Okay, so we use extemporaneous, using brief set of notes, looking back, see, and you'll see me look down every so often, look back at my notes and be like, oh yeah, I need to stay on track. And so there's extemporaneous. Following that, last and certainly not least, we have impromptu delivery. And so impromptu, defined, it is a speech delivered with little or no preparation. So we don't want to do this in this class, right? We want to prepare, we want to organize beforehand. Maybe for your first presentation, you were like, she's not going to know. Your second, third, fourth presentation, it's a little bit more prevalent, and this is when I start to become a little bit more critical as well. First presentation, just go up, talk about yourself. I just want to learn more about you. Your peers want to learn more about you. Wonderful. Second presentation, you got to gather, you got to organize, you need to prepare for yourself. And so an example of impromptu would be, if any of you have seen Whose Line Is It Anyway? YouTube it, it's great. But they're given like these brief scenarios, supposedly without any previous knowledge, and then they have to go through and they have to act it out. And so, can you give an impromptu speech, for instance, at a wedding? Yeah, right? Maybe you're like, oh yeah, I'll give a speech, and you go up and you're like, I've known Linda and John for blah, 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 and so on and so forth, whoever they might be. And so, can you give impromptu speeches? Yes, they require a lot less preparation. I've found that personally for myself with impromptu speeches, I do have a lot more nerves because I'm not prepared. I'm kind of stressed out, like what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? But with extemporaneous, there's a lot of preparation beforehand, so it's not just whatever comes to mind. You're going off a brief set of notes in case you kind of start to go off the wall a little bit, which hopefully you don't. And so again, the more practice that you have, the less nerves you will have, and the more specific you will also be in regards to the content that you need to discuss. So there's that. So again, we have manuscript, we have memory, and we have extemporaneous, and lastly, we have impromptu. Those are the 4 different types, and in this class, we do extemporaneous. So moving on, now that we talked about the 4 types of delivery, the 4 methods of delivery, let's move on to nonverbal communication. This is wonderful. This is a great portion within the textbook. It's great. So for this, let's first talk about what even is nonverbal communication. And so nonverbal communication, see, I'm over here itching like, it's all of this. It's everything that I'm doing right now. And so for our presentations, I do need to see your head all the way down to your waist at least. All right, because during presentations, I can see all of you and I can see those nonverbal movements like the moving around like this and like this. So make sure that you are standing and that you are looking at the camera, which sometimes I have difficulty with, and I know it's like right there, all right? So practice. But what does nonverbal communication entail? So it could be your personal appearance, right? So let's first talk about your personal appearance. And so how you are dressed, for instance. Can it make a difference? Yes, it definitely can. For instance, if I'm wearing a neon yellow shirt, might attract your attention quite a bit, right? And so a student did ask previously, like, hey, do we need to dress professionally? Like, do we need to have like a suit, a tie, a dress, and so on and so forth? No, you don't have to. As long as you're dressed appropriately for the occasion. And so what I mean by that is like, is it going to be distracting for your audience? And that's what goes along with a lot of the nonverbal cues. Is it distracting for your audience? Or is it emphasizing and enhancing your overall presentation? And so as you can notice today, I have a white wall behind me, and then I have me. That's it. That's all it is. You can see my hand gestures, you can see my hair, like you can see this. And it's nothing that's really too crazy, too out there. If I were wearing a neon shirt, for instance, that might take away from my presentation. My highlight a little bit, some of you might be looking at my highlight like, bro, that's shiny. And that's because I'm sweating a lot in my room. And so, again, I'm not going to be overly critical of like the lighting and the sound. I do need to be able to hear you, of course, but personal appearance, first and foremost, doesn't matter. Yes, it can. Like, for instance, if you're going to an interview, might people have negative perceptions of you based off of your appearance? Yes, unfortunately. And I talk about this in my interpersonal communication class. And do we think it's right or wrong that we do have these social expectations of what is appropriate versus what is inappropriate to wear for an interview or a class and so on and so forth? So my main thing for this class, for our class, is one, are you comfortable? Wear something that you're comfortable and you're confident in. That's all I care about. And two, is it appropriate for the classroom dynamic? Also, is it appropriate for your presentation? Right? Because I've seen people like kind of dress up a little bit for their presentations. And I say, whatever makes you feel good. I always like to dress up for the most part, even if it is just like a blouse. It makes me feel confident, it makes me feel good, and that's all. That's why I like to dress up and look a little bit put together. Sometimes my hair's a little bit crazy, but yeah, do I put some effort into how I look? Yes, I do. But do you have to go out and buy some new wardrobe? No. So there's that, personal appearance. Just choose something comfortable, something that you feel confident in, and it does shine through, your confidence does. So there's that. Next, movements. And when we're talking about movements, we can talk about like hand gestures, even facial expressions, whether you're walking back and forth, which I tend to see because those nerves tend to rise, so we might see some unnecessary movement. And again, that's something that we need to be mindful of. And so what are you doing with your hands? Are you locking your hands behind you? Are you playing with your note cards over here? What are you doing with your hands, right? And so you'll see me go, okay, first we're talking about this, second this, third this. And so it can emphasize main points, but also if you're doing things like touching your hair throughout your presentation, people can see that. And maybe at first it's not very noticeable. You're putting up your glasses, for instance. I don't ever wear my glasses. I wear glasses. I don't ever wear my glasses because I touch them so much. So I don't ever wear my glasses when I teach because of that. I always pull my hair behind me because, again, I know that I want to touch my hair. And so think about, that kind of goes along with personal appearance, right? So I always put my hair behind me, so I'm not doing that. But it also has to do with movement. So you want to be able to emphasize main points with your hands, make sure that your hands are free as well. If you have note cards, how are you holding those note cards? Are you still able to emphasize points? Are you still able to make those fluid movements? So there's that. There's the hand gestures. There's eye contact, right? So where are you looking? Are you generally looking at the screen, or do you have like a parent or a dog or something behind you and then you keep looking off to the side? We can notice that. If you're looking down the entire time reading, we notice that. And it's a little bit more noticeable online because this is all, like, if you're not looking at the camera, where are you looking, right? And that's really what we're thinking. If you're not looking at the camera, where are you looking? Are you looking off into the distance? Like, are you looking at the tree that's next to you? Like, where are you looking? And so we want to try our best to eliminate as many distractants around us, try to find a quiet place so that there aren't as many distractants around us, because we want to focus on you, the presenter. And so that's why I chose the white background today. That's why I chose a very quiet space today. And so hand gestures, eye contact, focus your eye contact, try to find the camera as much as possible. I tend to look at myself while I'm giving the presentation because I'm on my iPad today. And so think about how you are going to focus your attention. I need to get like one of those sticky notes that's like, look here. But again, eye contact, looking at your audience. So there's that. And then we have movements, hand gestures. Posture is also very important. Are you leaning on one leg? Are you like this, right? Again, this sets a very big tone for your overall presentation. Imagine me just giving this like that. Like, hey everyone, how are you doing? In today's video, we're going to be, this makes a difference, right? This is more engaging. Hey everyone, how you doing today, right? And again, you don't need to be this animated like me. You have your own personality, you have your own characteristics, but think about what is going to be the most effective means of nonverbal delivery that's going to enhance your message, right? So that's all we're talking about when we're talking about nonverbal communication. Hand gestures, facial expressions, smiling, right? It's not just, hey guys, how's it going today? Today we're going to be talking, no, right? I am very animated. You don't have to be this animated, but smile from time to time. And again, it goes with your presentation. If you're talking about something that's very serious, you probably aren't going to be smiling. You're probably going to have a serious face and a serious tone. And so there's that. Speaking of tone, let's get into paralanguage. Paralanguage is, again, a part of nonverbal communication. And so paralanguage, more specifically, is nonverbal communication such as your tone, pitch, or manner of speaking. So it's how you communicate. It's using your voice, right? But it's not verbal communication necessarily. It's still nonverbal, and it's how you're relaying information. And so your pitch, your tone, your volume, these all relate back to paralanguage. So volume, you need to speak loud enough so that we can hear you. If you can't hear yourself when you upload the video, we probably cannot hear you as well. So you need to make sure that we can actually hear you. Wherever you're standing, you need to be able to project your voice loud enough so that we can hear you. It's very important. So there's volume. If you're speaking too low, not going to be able to hear you. If you can't hear yourself on your own device, more than likely we cannot hear you either, and that's very important because we want to listen and understand your message. So volume, and then we have, which other one did I want? Vocal variety, speaking in like a monotone. Imagine if I just spoke like this every single time I made a video. Bueller. All right, and it's just, again, you're emphasizing main points. It helps your audience stay engaged and follow along. Have you ever had one of those instructors who had a monotone and you kind of just sat through the class and it was just too much. It was just not enough. You needed that vocal variety. And again, it keeps your audience engaged. So using vocal variety within your presentations, not reading, because when you read, you do tend to have a monotone when you read. Some other elements associated with your voice would include the rate at which you're speaking. Are you speaking too quickly? Are you speaking too slowly? Right? So again, it's kind of like that happy medium where the audience can understand you. I used to speak very, 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 very quickly when I began teaching and when I began giving presentations because I was so nervous. And now it's different. I know the information, but sometimes I just get a little too excited and I'm just like, la 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 la, take all this information. But at the same time, you need to be mindful of like, am I speaking too quickly because I'm so nervous about what I'm talking about? Or maybe you are thinking and trying to figure it out while you go. And that requires more practice, of course. So knowing what you're going to say. So rate, how quickly am I speaking? Can people still understand my message? There's also pauses. So how do we eliminate the ums, the uhs, the so's? Those are vocal fillers. Those are fillers. So they're just filling up space. And can they be a positive thing? There is some research that does discuss like the positive attributes of those vocal fillers. But in public speaking, you want to get to the point. Especially in 3 to 5 minutes, I need to get to my point. And so, see? And so if I just used the pause, I wouldn't have said that And so instead of using so to hit that 3 to 5 minute mark, use a pause. When you're trying to figure out what am I going to say next, pause. Opposed to so, like. And you'll go back and watch your videos and you'll notice those things. You'll notice, oh, I say so. Oh, I say right. Oh, I say, and so on and so forth. So notice what your vocal fillers are. What is just taking up space? What is just clutter? Because again, we have a certain time frame and we need to get to the point. So using pauses can definitely benefit you. See? Using vocal pauses can definitely benefit you in that aspect. And so moving on, pronunciation. How are you pronouncing the words? How are you pronouncing the words within your presentation? Sometimes, I used to say the word quarter. Students told me that I say it weird and that I don't pronounce it correctly. I guess it's quarter, and I say quarter. But do you have one of those family members who just does not pronounce words correctly, and every time there's someone else nearby, they kind of just like bat an eye and they're watching them like, you did not say that word correctly? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about pronunciation. Because again, it's sidetracking your audience. It's making them think like, wait, what did they just say? My mother says Italian. She says balut. And so that is not the correct way to pronounce these words. And so again, it can be a distractant for your audience. So are you pronouncing your words correctly? Are you articulating your words? Like, are we able to comprehend your message and understand your message? And then we also have, nope, that's it, okay. And so in this section, and so those are the different items associated with nonverbal communication and also paralanguage when we are talking about our voice and how we can convey our message through our voice, projecting our voice, using vocal pauses, eliminating vocal fillers. Last but certainly not least, I want to talk about how we can go about practicing our delivery, and these are kind of just some things that I wanted to throw in at the end. So one, prepare an outline. And that's why we're doing that for our second presentation. Prepare a brief outline, a brief set of notes so that you can practice, and see the key items that you want to address. Next, review your outline out loud. Say it out loud. Don't just read it over and over and over again, but look in front of the mirror. Say it out loud. 3, give yourself a dress rehearsal. So go in front of a mirror, look at yourself, practice in the same environment that you want to give this presentation. And so, for instance, today I set up everything, I tried to listen to the audio to see how it would sound for the students, and so do the same thing. Because when you tend to do everything in one run, there usually are issues, there usually are problems, so the more that you practice, the more comfortable that you're going to feel within this type of dynamic. And that's the same for face-to-face, that's the same for online. So if you do have a face-to-face presentation in a classroom dynamic, go to the class early, practice in that dynamic. When I was a student at Cal State San Bernardino, I had to do an interview to teach there while I was a graduate student. And there were many students who were applying for that position. And so they were only going to choose like 5 out of 10 of those students who gave a presentation. And so I went to that classroom that I knew that we were going to be giving our presentation in, and I practiced in that environment. I wanted to see the layout. And so that's something that's very important, is practicing within that dynamic. Practice. So in today's video, we talked a lot about nonverbal communication. We talked about delivery. And first we talked more so about the 4 methods of delivery, and then we talked about nonverbal communication as well as paralanguage and the voice. And so think about how you're presenting information to students. Think about how your instructors present information to you that makes you feel involved, that makes you feel like you're actually engaged and you actually understand the material. Think about your favorite professors that you watch online or that you had in class. What did they do that made you feel welcome in the classroom? And I'll bet you a lot of it goes back to those nonverbal cues. They weren't just sitting in the back of the class, just like figure it out, right, with their arms crossed and like, good luck, right? No, they were probably moving around like, hey, are you doing okay? What's going on? And so on and so forth. So think about those. Think about those nonverbal cues and how it can really impact your overall message. And so I hope that you all have a wonderful week. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about this chapter, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and have a good one. Bye.